For rank 3, I took on Touhou 7 Perfect Cherry Blossom on easy mode. The 1cc took me a few days of practice to get. I'd say this was harder than Star Parodier, but much easier than Gekurendan. The easy mode in Touhou games is really just practice or for players who want to experience the story. I plan on doing a normal or higher run of a Touhou game for a future video, so I'll save my thoughts about the actual gameplay mechanics and strategy for then. This time, I want to dive into the world of Touhou itself. I'll go ahead and let my full run play over here, and while it does, I'm going to do my best to tell you everything I've learned about this series, its creator, and its unbelievable fan base. In 2011, I was really into small, self-published indie games. I played Cave Story on loop, I sent annoying emails to the developers of Lugaru asking when the sequel was coming out. I was part of a forum that made Mario fan games. It was a time when I was very online and very plugged into the world of non-industry gaming. Back then, in all of my forum trawling, fan gaming, and general dyed-in-the-wool dweebiness, not once did I come across the word Touhou. That same year, this was happening in Japan.
Hey guys, how's it going? Alex K here, and welcome to Sub Tokyo. And today we're at Tokyo Big Site for Touhou Reitai Site 8. Look at all these people, let's go check it out.
This is Tokyo Big Site, the largest exhibition center in Japan. The event being hosted here is Reitai, a biannual convention for fans of Touhou Project. Touhou was the most popular video game I had never heard of. I didn't learn about Touhou until last year. I had recently replayed Undertale and was reading an interview by its creator Toby Fox. In it, he mentioned Touhou Project as a source of inspiration. This led to some curious Googling, YouTube viewing, and ultimately navigating some shady websites to download a pirated copy of Touhou 7 Perfect Cherry Blossom. I didn't do that because I wasn't willing to buy it, but because I literally couldn't. Touhou 1 through 9 are not available for purchase in any North American retail or digital storefront. Even the other Touhou games aren't available in English. But
wait a minute!
How could a video game popular enough to fill the largest exhibition center in Japan not have a North American publisher? Does the company that made it not realize the kind of money they're leaving on the table? Except there is no company that made Touhou. There's this guy, and from what I can tell, he's almost as baffled by all of this as I am. This is Junya Ota, the creator of Touhou Project. Junya grew up in Hakuba in the Japanese Alps. Hakuba is a popular ski resort destination and is known internationally for having hosted several events in the 1998 Winter Olympics. It's an idyllic mountainside town that serves as a retreat for many from the hectic metropolitan business world. Junya's love of games started early. He had a Game & Watch and an original Famicom. He also enjoyed playing on local arcade machines. The first game he said he ever played using his own money was Sun, which is a side-scrolling run-and-gun arcade shooter released in 1984 when he was 7. At the end of the game, Junya entered his initials for the high scores. Z-U-N. Zun. It's a play on Jun, the first syllable of his name. Zun is the nickname that Junya now goes by publicly, and it was also the name for the one-man doujin development group he created, Zunsoft. Zun's interest in games and computers led him to pursue a degree in mathematics at Tokyo Denki University. He owned a PC 9821, the first PC 98 model to include a CD-ROM drive. It was on this computer, during his studies, that he made the first game in what would become the Touhou Project series. It was called Highly Responsive to Prayers. If that strikes you as a cumbersome name, then just wait. Highly Responsive to Prayers differs from the rest of the Touhou series in that it isn't a vertically scrolling shmup. In fact, while it's definitely a danmaku or a bullet hell game, it arguably isn't a shmup at all, since the main mechanic involves hitting a ball at tiles similar to Breakout or Arkanoid. The second game, Story of Eastern Wonderland, is the game that really established the formula that the next, 18 and counting mainline entries would follow. Zun bundled these first two games together on floppy disks and brought them to the 52nd Comic Market, or Comiket, which is an annual doujinshi convention in Japan. Doujinshi means self-published, basically, but it's also related to the term doujin, which means fan group or hobby group. A lot of the content made by these groups is fan fiction and fan art. Doujin Soft is a term sometimes used to refer to self-published games made by doujin devs. Zun was one of the first breakout Doujin Soft successes. He sold out of copies of his games at his first event and was encouraged to make more. So he returned to Comiket for the next 3 years to premiere a new game and to sell copies of the old ones. He developed 5 games games in total for the PC-98. These original Comiket floppy disks can sell for upwards of $1,000 today as rare collector's items. By this point, Zun was an underground sensation, and it wasn't just fans that were impressed. He showed Touhou off in an interview for a programming job at Taito in 1998 and was hired on the spot. During his first few years at Taito, Zun took a break from making new Touhou games. During this time, he worked on a number of PlayStation 2 games such as Magic Pengul, The Quest for Color, Wujingai, and Graffiti Kingdom. While working on these projects, Zun's programming skills increased, and so did the power of personal computers. In 2002, he decided to reboot Touhou and develop a new game that would run on modern Windows PCs. He returned to Comiket that year with a new game, Embodiment of Scarlet Devil. With this release, Touhou Project went from being a college kid's hobby project to a cult phenomenon. Zun went back to releasing a new game annually for Comiket, and by 2004, Touhou had amassed such a large following that fans began organizing their own annual Dojin event exclusively for Touhou content, Raitaisai. The first Raitaisai had 114 fan circles participating. At the 2011 event, that number increased to almost 5,000. It's hard to find statistics for attendance for these events, but I was able to find that in 2015, Raitaisai 12 reportedly had around 52,000 attendees. Let's put that in perspective for a second. This is BlizzCon. It's the annual event for a few little games you might have heard of like World of Warcraft, Diablo, and Overwatch. These events have featured musical artists like the Foo Fighters, Ozzy Osbourne, and Metallica. In 2015, the same year as Raitaisai 12, it had 25,000 attendees. Half as many people bought tickets to see Linkin Park and World of Warcraft, the biggest MMO of all time, as the number of people who showed up for this. Okay, so admittedly, admission to BlizzCon was about 10 times more expensive than Raitaisai. So then let's take a different example. DragonCon, the premier annual event for Dungeons & Dragons, the most successful tabletop game of all time, and Magic the Gathering, the most successful card game of all time. Ticket prices to DragonCon are about the same per day as Raitaisai. DragonCon's highest attendance ever was 85,000 in 2019, but that convention lasted 7 days instead of the 3 days that Raitaisai does. QuakeCon, Minecon, TwitchCon, none of these gaming events have ever reached the attendance numbers of a fan-run event for a 2D shoot-'em-up game series made completely by one person. Let me say it again. Touhou is the most popular video game I'd never heard of. It's like if Despacito was only ever played on Puerto Rican radio stations. It's like if Squid Games aired on public access in Korea. It's like if Tetris had never made it across the Berlin Wall. How is this possible? Touhou now has 19 mainline games, and just because I think that they're kind of funny, let's go through the names of all of these games. Highly Responsive to Prayers, Story of Eastern Wonderland, Phantasmagoria of Dim Dream, Lotus Land Story, Mystic Square, Embodiment of Scarlet Devil, Perfect Cherry Blossom, Imperishable Night, Phantasmagoria of Flower View. Yes, we used Phantasmagoria twice. Mountain of Faith, Subterranean Animism, Undefined Fantastic Object, 10 Desires. That one's actually pretty normal considering. Double Dealing Character, Legacy of Lunatic Kingdom, Hidden Star in 4 Seasons, Wily Beast and Weakest Creature, and my favorite, Unconnected Marketeers, Unfinished Dream of All Living Ghosts. There are also 13 official spin-offs to Touhou, including a fighting game series made in cooperation with another Dojinsoft studio called The Twilight Frontier. In addition to that, there's also Touhou novels, short stories, and manga. And when you start getting into fan-made content, things get wild. Touhou fan music is basically its own genre. There are over 117,000 fan songs on TouhouArrangementChronicle.com. There's a 17-episode fan anime. There are Touhou plushies, action figures, cosplay outfits. Zun has his own brand of beer. And as far as I can tell, it looks like some fans of Touhou are making more money off of the IP than its creator is. There are hundreds of Touhou fan games. I'm not just talking find it on itch.io or check out this in the Google Play Store. You can buy some of these fan games at your local GameStop. Touhou Luna Nights is a 2D Metroidvania that has sold over 300,000 copies between Steam and consoles. You heard that correctly. A Touhou fan game has sold more units than Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, Concord, and Shenmue 3 combined. Touhou is a big deal. It goes without saying that it's the most popular shmup in the world, and it's not even close. And yet, if you go to any digital game storefront and type in Touhou, you won't find any of the games. You'll find plenty of fan games, but none of the ones actually made by Zun. If you go to Steam, change your language preferences to show Japanese-only games, and then search for Touhou, you will find some of them after scrolling down for a while, but none of them have English translations, and the store page is completely in Japanese. And on one hand, okay, maybe it's admirable that Zun hasn't sold out and signed a contract with some Western publisher to localize his games. Maybe it shows the true spirit of Dojin that Zun defies his work's marketing potential. But as a fan of shmups, bullet hell games, and the 2 Touhou games that I've played so far, I really just have one thing to say to its creator. Please, take my money.